Well, g'day everybody. It's Benjamin Morgan, Chief Executive of the Aircraft Owners and Pilots Association of Australia, and welcome to this evening's live broadcast for what is now the 10th of the 10th. Where's this year disappearing? These days are just clicking by so quickly, and we are fast approaching the end of 2022, and we still have an enormous advocacy list sitting in front of us. But this evening, it's all about our newest team member, somebody who joined the association not too long ago in a formal capacity to help serve our members, and that is none other than Lorraine Macgillivray. Now, Lorraine is no stranger to many people across both the recreational and general aviation industry, and she comes to the association with some 27 years of aviation experience behind her, and she's taken on probably one of the most difficult roles inside of AOPA Australia, and that is to manage the membership. And we have members in every state and territory across Australia, and members have all kinds of needs at all different times on a whole range of issues relating to medical concerns or regulatory matters or issues pertaining to aircraft ownership or aircraft insurance, and even flight training concerns, issues around how to start up an aviation business, understanding part regulation, as a charter company, flight training business, maintenance company, you name it, AOPA is involved in those conversations. And so at the centre of our organisation, a strong and capable membership manager is something of enormous value. And so without much further ado, I'd like to welcome Lorraine to this evening's broadcast. Lorraine, thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, Ben. How are you?
Look, I'm really, really well. And as I promised you from the outset of this broadcast this evening, this is a casual catch up between you and I, but in a public environment so that you would have the opportunity to meet our members across Australia. Not everyone's going to be able to tune into this broadcast this evening, mind you, but hopefully there'll be a few out there that won't mind throwing a few questions at us and putting some comments as we journey through it. Lorraine, maybe the best place for us to start this evening is for you to give us a bit of an overview of your aviation background and your aviation interests. And then from there, I might throw a few questions to you. And as any questions and comments come up, I'll be able to then bring them up on screen. So over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Ben, and welcome to everybody that has tuned in so far. I'd just like to apologise just from the outset on my internet access is sort of downscaling my image. So I don't know what's going on. I'm out in the country, I guess, so maybe that's, the signal's taken a long time to get here. Look, 27 years in the industry, and it's had lots of excitement in it. I've been able to witness the best and the worst in the industry. Unfortunately, some of the worst, which is not always a good thing. I came from an Air Force family, so I guess I was subconsciously brainwashed into aircraft, living on Air Force bases and hearing them constantly in the background as I was growing up. I guess, that had the first influence, and I was sat in a windshield at the age of about 6 by my father. So when windshields were brand new, Ben. So it was, I guess that's where it all started. And then I ended up working for the Air Force as a civilian. I spent many years doing that. And then I got introduced to the industry when I actually facilitated my daughter learning to fly. So that was in gliders. So we did gliding first, went to powered, and, the rest is sort of history. I started a low capacity RPT. I bought half the flying school that I was learning to fly at. And it just went on and on and on. And it was only after a very short time I met my now husband, Bob, who lots of people know, Bob Macgillivray. And the last 21 years with him, or 22 years with him, have been spent with Edge Aviation and providing a lot of niche sort of services, professional services to the industry. So I've been in it. I guess I've been in it all, probably my whole life in some way or another. There's been that influence, particularly from my family.
And your background covers both. I think you touched on the background covers both a recreational and also a general aviation experience. And I have to say that I first met you in the construct of the recreational space. Could you just maybe elaborate a little bit further on what you were doing within that area?
Yes, and I mean, initially I'm a GA pilot as well, but one day I took a particular interest in wanting to be an instructor, and that's how I became involved in the recreational space. I started a flying school and, just did what a lot of other people were doing. I wanted to pass on that. I don't know, I have a huge passion for the industry. I mean, I know there's times, Ben, and you and I have discussed this, and we agree that we're passionate about it, and sometimes we have this almost a love-hate relationship with it. We love it one day and we hate it the next, so we wonder why we're in it. But no, the recreational side of aviation was very attractive to me because it did truly make aviation accessible to people and affordable for people, and I think that's been hugely beneficial to the industry over time.
And I guess we should just briefly touch on it. But you and I, in the early days of getting to know you, actually got involved in helping you in relation to a particular recreational I guess
that aircraft
recreational aircraft manufacturer, in which yourself and Bob were assisting in representing, and you're still working studiously behind the scenes on that right now. But we did meet through that, and I guess.
Yes, we did.
It provided you an insight into the world of what AOPA Australia does, not only from
Absolutely.
a perspective of helping the individuals, but by helping the businesses and being there to support in times when things aren't necessarily going as well as they should.
That is true, and that challenge continues today. And I've made a commitment to fight it to the bitter end, I guess. Yes, I had been an AOPA member before. In fact, I had a couple of membership periods early on in my aviation career, I guess you could call it. And I recently joined, not because of that issue, but because I have always recognised the need for industry to have what I will just call, for the purpose of tonight's discussion, is that voice. And as far as I'm aware, other than the other organisations like the SAAA and RAA and the Gliding Federation that have their own voice too, there is not a voice in this country or an organisation such as AOPA that provides an advocacy and a voice for the broader industry. In other words, it's all encompassing. So it doesn't exclude anybody. Anybody is welcome to be a member of AOPA. In fact, we want you to be members of AOPA because we cannot do the things that we need to do for industry without the support of a strong membership. And Ben, I've got to say that you resonated with me. We have a lot in common. Some people might have just taken an instant dislike to me, but that's okay. We do have a lot in common, and that's, I think we are passionate. We are prepared to stand up and fight at the risk of, we stick your head up and someone's going to try and knock it off, and but that's okay. We've got to tough that out. But AOPA you were very good to myself and the people that I'm supporting, and we couldn't have got to some places without your help. And while it continues to go on, I know I continue to have your support. In fact, I better have your support because otherwise you can have your job back. So, it's important. And I think that, there's a lot of challenges in the industry now, and advocacy is just so important, and you do it so well. And if you didn't, I wouldn't be here. Simple as that.
Well, look, I do appreciate the kind words, and I want to just say to everybody, the purpose of tonight's broadcast has not been to sit and have a huge love in, but to really give everyone an opportunity to meet you, Lorraine, and get a little bit of the understanding of your background and your story and what has brought you to AOPA. But I do very much appreciate the kind words that you have given, and you and I have had, we have had a lot of conversation around how difficult it is to be an advocate for an industry. And I don't think I really speak too openly too often about the challenge of being an advocate on behalf of an industry, and an industry as complex and as difficult as aviation as aviation is. And I often joke that if you walk into a room of pilots and say, I have an idea, and give them option A, you'll very quickly have option B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, and not one of them will agree with each other.
No.
And often that is the case, but it's purely because the industry comprises of people who really think about issues. They think about things and they have very strong views on how they see solutions, and that's not a bad thing. That at times is actually a really, really good thing. But it's sometimes difficult to herd the cats, as the saying goes. And it's also difficult at times to take the public beating that you do when you stand up on an issue, and not everyone's always going to agree with you.
No.
And I've weathered the storm. I'd like to believe six odd years into the job, I've battened the hatches down a few times and I've toughed it out, but I've come to really respect and I've come to admire and love the industry because it is for people who genuinely care. And, Lorraine, you're included in that as well, that you really, really cared about the outcomes and the issues that were going on and are still going on in some respects with that aircraft manufacturer. And so, I admire that. I admire the fighting spirit in our industry a great deal. And so, I really appreciate that comment. And, it really, knowing you as well as I do, I know it comes from such a good place.
Yeah, it's, the thing is too, Ben, that a lot of people don't understand that there's kind of like two ends to this industry. There's the commercial part of the industry where, the margins are so tight, it's over-regulated, all the things that you've discussed before are all problems for those commercial operators, whether they be 1 or 2 person operators or whether they be larger organisations. The burden that's placed on those organisations to try and survive in the industry in this country today is just extraordinary. At the same time, we've got the recreational pilots and the person that just wants to chug around in their 1, 2 or 4 seat aeroplane that are finding a lot of the same challenges. Being able to operate in and out of the airports, you're really pushing this airport business at the moment, and the issue that we have with lots of them being closed down, privatised and turned into postage stamps, if they're even going to exist at all in the future. So, while the challenges are different in some ways at opposite ends of the scale, they're very much the same in a lot of other ways. And that's the industry being manageable, the regulations being manageable, and us being able to function in it and enjoy it. Not only be able to make a living out of it like we should be able to do, but also to enjoy it without the stresses and that a lot of organisations and private pilots are experiencing today.
Look, I agree with you. And, the advocacy agenda for AOPA over the last 6 years that I've been involved has been focused on largely one core tenet. And that core tenet has been, what about the rights of the individual in this industry? Everything centres around pilots. Everything centres around aircraft owners. The maintenance industry centres around that. The flight training industry centres around that. Our charter industry centred around that. Our airline industry centred around that. All things to do with aviation orbit the individual. And it really occurred to me, and one of the fundamental reasons that I got involved, and this, we've discussed this at length, that I got involved with AOPA was that I saw a need to protect the individual. I saw that the rights of our people in this industry needed to be protected. Somebody needed to stand up and have a conversation to say, hey, what about the medical rights of the individual? What about the licensing rights of this individual? What about their right to own and operate a flight training school, their rights to participate? And I've tried to make that about the advocacy that I engage in. I admit I probably haven't got it right all the time, and sometimes I might have gone a little too far in my conversations on issues, but it's been about trying to get a national conversation going on about protecting the rights of our participants in this industry and seeing to it that issues get spoken about and that a debate occurs. And I think that is so critical, and what I'm proud of the work that we do. And I think that you will be another great catalyst in this, because in your role as membership manager, you're going to be able to have these conversations with members. You're going to be able to listen to the things that are happening in their sphere, and you're going to be able to assist us as a advocacy team in bringing some of these issues to the fore to ensure that they're going to be able to be advocated for and not just spoken about, but converted into an outcome.
Exactly. And I think, now that you've touched on the the membership, now that you've touched on that, let's talk to the membership thing a bit, because what I wanted to say to people is I've had some discussions with many people in the past few weeks, and there's a common thread of concerns that have been expressed to me, all of which I get, and I'd like to just run over those quickly for the benefit of anybody who's watching and who will watch it a bit later on. AOPA is not any different to any other organisation or business that suffered that hiatus of COVID-19. And as a result of COVID, what a lot of people probably don't recognise is that you had some very, very difficult. And look, I just got to say at this point, Ben, because for the benefit of people watching, this is not scripted. Ben and I haven't concocted this. You know what we're going to say? Because this will sound really good. No, we didn't do that because Ben and I are not like that. So we both each speak our own mind, and that's what I'm doing now. It's AOPA is no different to any other business. So Ben had to make some very difficult decisions when COVID hit, with some declining membership because people couldn't afford to pay their membership fees. They had other rightful priorities, which we all understand. And, the membership cards went by the wayside. The magazine had gone by the wayside, so we had to do that same cost cutting that many other organisations had to do. And so some people are feeling really deprived at the moment. Well, I paid this membership and, what the hell am I getting for it? I guess I've tried to say to people what they're getting for their membership at the moment is the advocacy, which is the most important thing that we have. And so we need to keep that going. That is the core of what AOPA does. It's not just about membership cards or crew cards or magazines and all the other nice to haves, even though we recognise that they need to be there. And they will be again in the future. So for the benefit of those who have asked me and those who are going to or would like to, membership cards, I was looking at going to a digital membership. I am not totally convinced that's the way to go. It sort of seems like people like to have this card in their hand. It's kind of like I've got something physical, something real and tangible for my money that gives me an identity. It proves that I am a part of AOPA. So I get that, and I think that's something that we need to consider and we will talk about. I know that there are board members that would love to see the magazine back, but I think what people need to remember, all of those things cost money.
I was just about to in Lorraine to say, look, nobody wants the magazine back more than I do.
Correct.
When I joined AOPA 6 years ago, I joined an association that was venting nearly $250,000 on a magazine. Yeah. It was burning a hole through the association that we just couldn't control. We were producing, believe it or not, this is how ridiculous the situation was. I think we were printing in excess of 15,500 magazines, of which we were throwing out 6,500 magazines on a per edition basis. They were going into a dumpster. They were being sent to newsagents. And when we did the math on the entire deal of having the magazine out in news agencies, it turned out that we were literally paying newsagents to take our magazine and to throw it away because they weren't. And it's really sad because we all want a successful magazine. I mean, I look at the success of AOPA in the United States with, 500,000 pilots in the US and a membership of several 100,000 members strong for AOPA USA, having millions of dollars coming through the coffers where they can structure those programs. We would love to do this in Australia, but to do it, you have to have a certain critical threshold of members. And without that threshold, you're just burning a hole. And I had to, and this is, they talk about the burden of leadership and the burden of decision making. The decision fell on my shoulders at one point, which was either I continue to sit back and allow the magazine to remain running, or we were going to see the association run out of money. It had to stop. So we made the decision to stop and we went digital, and we allocated a budget, and we had Carisha Ballantyne at the time and Brian Big working to produce content, but they didn't work for free. These people had to be paid on a monthly basis, or weekly, fortnightly, monthly basis to produce content. And so, whether we were running a printed magazine and being buried in printing costs that we were literally printing paper and throwing it away, or running the digital service and spending thousands of dollars to maintain the digital service, there are still significant costs involved. But to do it, you've got to have that membership critical mass. And I think you're right. I think the members are on point, Lorraine. You and I, we've nodded on this issue, and we know we need to get that service back. And I'd love that service back, but it's going to take each and every one of us to go out and be grabbing our colleagues within the industry and dragging them together to say, hey, if you don't join and you don't support, then we can't do. We can't do the great work we're doing on medical reform. We can't do the great work that we're doing at airports. We can't do the great work that we're doing to drive the independent flight instructors back into general aviation. We can't achieve these outcomes if we don't have a collective support. And I will throw it back to you. And I know people are saying, shut up, Ben, let Lorraine talk. Sadly, I was contacted by an aero club recently. And the aero club said, our membership is automatically renewed. We don't want to be a member. Mm-hmm. And I thought to myself, this is a really sad outcome. That an aero club is saying we don't want to be a member. It's an aero club that has largely transitioned away from general aviation. They've become primarily a recreational club. And I dare say, Lorraine, that they've become primarily a recreational club because their members are aging. Their members are facing the same challenge the rest of the entire industry is facing in the difficulty of being able to maintain a Class 2 medical. And so, like so many aero clubs across the country, they're left with one outcome. If CASA is going to make it impossible for people to be pilots under the CASA system, we have no choice. We have to go and we have to all become RALs schools and RALs clubs. How sad is it that I've devoted 6 years of my working life, and for the last 3 years, I've cut my salary down to under 40 grand a year to work full time to fight to get these medical reforms done so that thousands of people across the industry, including that aero club and all of their members, will have access to self-cert medicals. And yet these clubs are saying, no, we don't want to pay the $299 because we're RALs. We don't understand what AOPA does for us. And so we've got a huge job, Lorraine. You and I have got such a big job in front of us. We need to engage with these clubs, and we've got to help them understand that the work that we're doing is actually going to repair the pathways, and it's going to help create a bridge that enables those members to participate in both recreational and general aviation, because we will have leveled the playing field, we will have protected the rights of pilots, and we'll have brought forward reform that is vital to the success of the industry.
And I can actually speak to that, Ben, because I am one of those aging pilots. So for the benefit of the people watching, I am 65 years old. And so we often sort of think, how long are we, and I maintain a Class 2 medical at the moment, and but I also have a recreational an RAIOS flight school, of which I'm the CFI. You kind of got to straddle the both at the moment, and and previous discussions that you've had about the medicals is very, very true, and it's quite discriminatory that I can be on one side and don't have to have one, and be on the other side, and I do. So I've always supported everything you've said about the medicals, but people need to understand that if we don't have AOPA and we don't have the likes of someone like you, Ben, then we don't have that voice, and if we don't have that voice, we don't get those changes. And I think back to when. I think I said to you earlier today when you said, you were tired, and, it can be very stressful at times. And yes, it is. And I said, how old are you, Ben? And he said, what, 43 or something? And I said, my God, I'm 65. You haven't got a problem yet. Seriously. So, it is really important, but I pay $299 a year for AOPA as a business, along with my husband. Even though I have an RAIOS flight school and everything, because I recognise how important and how critical it is that we have an organisation such as AOPA to represent, like we said before, the whole of the aviation industry, not just the larger commercial operators. It's everybody. It's right down to the person flying their little drifter. It's everybody. It's, and I think that's what a lot of people don't realise, what what's in it for them? What does their membership give them? And it will give them hopefully that opportunity to be able to fly with letters instead of numbers, or whatever they choose, and to actually have a choice, because at the moment we don't have a choice. Give us back our choice. And AOPA gives us the voice to have that potential. And I think that one of the good things is that, or what I'd like to say to the members is that, first off, our priority is advocacy, because that's what we're all about. Because who was just an organisation that just flings out a magazine and a membership card? I want advocacy first. Then we'll follow it up with the membership cards, and they will be coming sooner rather than later. And the crew cards, again, the opportunity for people to have the crew cards, because they use those for all sorts of things. And then the magazine. Now, initially, it might be digital before we can take it to hard copy. But, we know exactly what the members want and expect, and we agree. So, it's just a case of, we need your support. I think I said, the individual membership is a half of a latte a week, right? So if I was to ask all of the individual pilots out there, whether they be recreational or GA, if they would give up a half a latte at their local coffee shop a week in order for them to have a voice and someone advocate for them in the industry, it's not very much in the whole scheme of things for what you can get in return. And that's probably the simplest way I can put it. I would give up multiple lattes to have the advocacy. So I know it sounds a bit cliche-ish, like, you give up a half a cup of coffee a week, it's no big deal. But it is realistically small change at the end of the day. It's small change.
Look, it is. And the realities are that in terms of runs on the board, AOPA has achieved an enormous body of work on behalf of our members. I mean, we've been involved in so many airport disputes where we've been instrumental in helping guide communications with councils, in helping protect the interests of local aviation communities. It has just, I've lost count of it. I mean, the epic battle that went on behind the scenes in relation to Warnervale and the meetings with state government there, the epic battle that went on in relation to the loss of the Katoomba Airport. We don't win all of them either. And we invest hundreds and thousands of hours into each and every one of these issues. And we're not government sponsored. We don't get any assistance by way of grants or free money. It's quite literally everything that we do is funded by our members. And that is a remarkable thing. It's something completely remarkable if you really think about it, that thousands of people across the aviation industry care about their industry so much that they willingly contribute in a way in which it enables us to go out there and to involve ourselves in the middle of these conversations to ensure that the rights of the industry are protected. Gympie Airfield, stopping the runway at Gympie being shortened under a so-called claim by a local council to quote unquote improve safety. I mean, can you believe the lunacy of these things? Debates down from one end of the industry to the next. I mean, I remember, an RA Oz pilot ran into trouble down in Tasmania. He mounted a timber gun to the top of his RA Oz biplane and took it to, or had the aircraft on show at a fly-in day, and someone from the local community dobbed him in, and next thing the poor old bugger was facing the prospect of firearms, serious category firearms charges that have jail time attached to them. And he had nowhere to go. He picked up the phone and said, "Ben, I'm not a member of AOPA. I'm an RA Oz guy. Would you help?" I'm like, "Of course I'll bloody help. What do you need?" Next thing you know, I'm on the phone to Senator Jackie Lambie, because we maintain great relationships with our senators. Jackie, could you get me a meeting with the Tasmanian Police Commissioner? Ben, I can do that. Next thing you know, I was on the phone to the Tasmanian Police Commissioner. "Hey, are you aware that your police station in this area of Tasmania are trying to charge this poor old 70-year-old bugger with a serious category firearms charge for a timber gun on a..." and we were able to turn that situation around and work with Tasmanian Police, and it saved him an enormous headache. And as he said to me at the end of it, he just said, he actually, he went to another organisation. They said, mate, you're on your own. Whereas my attitude is, no, you're never on your own. In this industry, you will always have AOPA. And I just send this message to everybody that even if you're not a member of AOPA and you run into trouble tomorrow, you need to call me. You need to call this association, because we will help. We're not going to leave you on your own. And there's guys out there like Shannon Baker and Pete Schott, and there's a list a mile. I mean, I can't sit here and just rail them off, but there are so many people across this industry that can attest to the fact that we are not all talk, we are all do. We get involved, we make it happen.
Exactly.
And I'm incredibly proud of, Lorraine, and you'll get to see more and more of this as you're working internally in the organisation, that there's a lot of work that we do that we don't necessarily, we don't rate too many mentions on, but without that work, people either end up in serious trouble or their rights are trampled all over. So it's a very interesting organisation from that perspective.
It is, and it brings me to this point, and that is that because I actually have had one gentleman say to me, like, if you need some help, just help, because people might sort of say, well, why are you even bothering to? I mean, I've stuck my head up enough times around the industry that I've had it knocked off a few times too, or people are trying to anyway, Ben. But like, I am here because I really believe in AOPA, and I believe in you too, Ben, and you know that, and I know, I don't just believe, I know the industry needs AOPA. So whether all of the industry has come to terms with the fact that they need AOPA or not, that remains to be seen. But I hope that they get the message that we are here to help. But also, if people are willing to offer suggestions, I mean, please do email me at Edge Aviation. Oh, you can email me at either edgeaviation@yahoo.com or Lorraine at aopa.com.au. Email me with suggestions, and I don't care if you want to have a heated debate with me. You can have that too. I'm cool with that. So suggestions. Anything. If there's anything you can do to support AOPA, or you want to participate in support, you feel like you've got something to contribute, then please just we welcome that on board anytime. It is our organisation and it is our industry, and I think that's what a lot of people forget.
Okay, so the critical question is going to be, how does somebody contact you to become a member of AOPA Australia? So what I've done is I've just put up a slide here, Lorraine. It says become a member of AOPA Australia online today. You can do it online. You can go to the website, www.aopa.com.au/membership, or you can contact Lorraine directly on 0307 768. And that will go straight through to Lorraine. Alternatively, you can also send Lorraine an email. If you're an existing member and you're wanting to get things renewed, or you want to query whether your membership is current or not, you can email Lorraine at aopa.com.au, and that's going to go straight through to her, and she will be able to respond directly with you and have a conversation. And I know, Lorraine, you've already been reaching out to quite a number of people across the various states and territories, and getting them back into the system. Obviously, we are back out of COVID now. All the COVID restrictions are starting to settle down. Businesses are getting back to normal, thank God. And we too are in the business of getting back to business, and we'll be reaching out to members right across Australia seeking their support. And of course, the big issue here, the big issue that we're really, really close to closing out, is going to be this self-certification medical for general aviation, for RPL, RPL holders. This will be 6.5, and if CASA drag this into next year, it'll be 7 years. Can anyone believe it? 7 years of work of advocacy and determined advocacy to get this done for the aviation industry. But it will be something that our entire team will be incredibly proud of. I know every single member of the AOPA board will be over the moon if we can get this reform delivered, and it will help thousands of pilots across Australia.
Oh, absolutely.
Many of which we want them to become members of Australia. We would love to think that having delivered the self-certification medicals, having leveled the playing field for the industry, and having enabled the industry to, to be able to move forward on an equal standing with one another, that's something that everybody across the industry will respect and admire.
Absolutely.
Hopefully, the result of which will be an inflow of people getting involved with the association and backing us so that we can get the work on independent instructors underway. We can get some of these maintenance regulations reforms underway. And, and if there's other things, and this is the big thing, you've got Lorraine's emails on screen right now. If you've got an issue in the aviation industry and you believe in it passionately and you believe it needs to be addressed, we hear it. Bring it forward. I mean, Lorraine, you've already received, there's a laundry list in many respects. And can I say ASIC cards are at the top?
Oh, please, Ben, can I have the floor for just one moment, please? Because everybody, I'm presently trying to get my ASIC. And I have been, this is going to sound a bit funny, I have been me for my whole life. I'm an Australian citizen. I have an Australian passport. I have a multitude of documents. But heaven forbid, I've changed my name a couple of times because I've been a couple of times married, and I am having a huge amount of difficulty proving who I am. Seriously. And it seems like being married even for the past 21 years and having passports and multiple ASICs before and all sorts of things. Devonport Aero Club, you're welcome. I hope I can help. The ASIC is going to be one of the babies I'm going to be sticking into Ben, and we're going to be chasing this because it is the grossest, most unnecessary, most costly, most annoying. It just is terrible. It's terrible. And in fact, it might be the case that I can't prove who I am, Ben.
Because, I'm find out somehow.
It's I seriously, I just, all the things you could do before aren't good enough anymore. And I tried to tell this young lass today at one of the organisations where you can get an ASIC that it's funny that my father and my mother's name is actually on my marriage certificate, and that matches my birth certificate, and so does my date of birth and everything, and that doesn't seem to matter. So I tried to tell her, but I could just, if I wanted to use an aircraft to cause some sort of destruction, I don't need to have an ASIC. I could just buy a ticket. Just buy a ticket and get on the airplane. So one of my pet things.
The ASIC card, Lorraine, has been I've had several goes at this. Believe it or not, in the 6 and a bit years I've had several goes at this. The first one I failed dismally, and I worked out that wasn't going to work. I had another couple of goes at it that ended up in some pretty interesting meetings with Department of Home Affairs. I then ended up, through a process of meetings, having a better understanding of where the Commonwealth's view was in relation to the security measures around the ASIC card. And what I discovered in the process of all of this that I would share with everybody is that we arrived at a point with the ASIC card where the Department of Home Affairs representatives that we were speaking to understood the argument that the card really was there to protect commercial aviation. Mm-hmm. They weren't really that interested in private aviation. However, the reason private aviation became caught up in this ASIC card nonsense is that wording matters. It's the words in the Act and in the legislation. And unfortunately, in the wording for the Aviation Security Act, it states that a person with a flight crew license must hold. To be issued a flight crew license must hold. And so it remains my view, and it was accepted by the representatives that we even spoke to at the time, but unfortunately it's okay for departments to hold a view. You need to have the political support and the departmental support to make it happen. We all agreed that it was probably an inadvertent use of the phrase flight crew license that sank private aviation into this world of ASIC cards, because if you go and look at definitions, the definition of a flight crew license holder is a person who holds a PPL, CPL, ATPL. Mm-hmm. Had the Act been a little bit more carefully constructed and clear in its definition, that it was really about CPLs and ATPLs, we wouldn't be in this situation. Now what we're trying to do as an advocacy is we're trying to undo that wording, and we're trying to encourage a review and an amendment to an act at a time when we have a global catastrophe unfolding in the Ukraine with Russia, and at a time when the government is super hypersensitive in relation to the prospect of all kinds of terrorism, cyber terrorism, bioterrorism, and at a time when the world navigated a global pandemic. And so, as good an advocate as I'd like to believe that I am, and I'm still learning, I have a huge L plate on me, no doubt. I don't think you ever become a great advocate. It's just something you've got to keep learning at. But even I recognize that our capacity to drive change on that issue during the peak of COVID was non-existent. And so at that time, I backed off. But leading up to when COVID really got going, I was actually making headway. I was starting to get somewhere in understanding where was the problem, how do we need to address that problem, what would be the solution that we could recommend in addressing that problem, and then how we're going to advocate that to key decision makers to get it moving. Now, I'm pretty confident that if things settle down, we can get to an outcome which would provide a solution to this, and it's very much within reach. But there we go. It's just another great example as to why people right across the aviation industry need to get into AOPA. They need to be supporting this association, because we are thinking about these issues. We are working on these issues. We are researching these issues. We are looking at ways that we can approach these challenges and we can overcome these hurdles. And without that membership support, we just can't do it. So, if the broader aviation community would like to see these types of issues being changed, we need buy-in. We need thousands and thousands of pilots across the aviation industry to say, hey, we're going to get involved with this organisation.
Please,
and I'll say this broadly.
And just for the record, Ben, Lorraine wants the ASIC gone. I want the ASIC gone.
Marine industry doesn't have this, right? They don't have this nonsense for private. It's crazy. I can get in a 45-foot sailboat on Sydney Harbour and I can sail right up beside a Navy ship. Hell, I mean, we go yacht racing out of Elizabeth Bay, and quite often there's a Collins-class submarine in the middle of the damn race course, and I've got to sail around the damn thing in the middle of a race. If you're worried about terrorism, let's start looking at obvious points of focus, and you would get out of control. You'd have everyone locked up doing nothing. So I think we can overcome that challenge. We can change it. I think we can. And I think it's one that, apart from, you get through the medical issue first, but I think it's going to be one of the next things on the list, because, it's very, very costly. And between myself and Bob, by the time I apply for 2 marriage certificates and pay the fees and everything, so it's going to be probably somewhere around $700 or $800, or $700 for 2 years for the both of us, for it to probably never be checked. Like if I fly to Burke or somewhere, or if I go to Cuba PD. A quick shout out here, Lorraine, to Mark Newton, who's been an AOPA member for some time, and is a great example of how AOPA function. And Mark, from time to time, will send emails through and make issues known that he believes are important, and has become a valuable resource to us at the at head office there at Bankstown in being able to look at issues from pilots' perspective. So thanks again, Mark, for joining in for the broadcast and taking part in the.
Thanks, Mark. Nice to meet you online. I'll probably see you at Bankstown.
Of time, we said we'd go for 30 minutes, and I did kind of allude in the quick live stream this afternoon we'd go a little bit over. And there's still so many other issues that realistically I would love to discuss. And I guess, how about we throw it out? Let's throw it out to the members. I'm just going to put my email address. Actually, let's put Lorraine's email address out.
Yep.
If you're going to be watching this broadcast live tonight, or you're going to get, obviously there'll be, these videos do get seen, and they don't always get seen live. They get seen afterwards when people do have time. How about this? If you've got an aviation issue that you'd like us to be talking about, or you'd like us to be discussing, or even researching, send Lorraine an email. Drop it in an email. Let her know that it's an issue that you think is important. And what we might do, Lorraine, is we might get a hold of Sean Kelly, president of AOPA, in the next few days, and we might do a follow-up video, and we might. I think
that's a great idea.
Forward, and we can have further conversation around some of these key issues. And to anybody out there, if you're an AOPA Australia member or you're an industry supporter, or maybe you're someone who doesn't agree with what AOPA does or the things that we're engaged in discussing, and you'd like your opportunity, why don't you contact us and we can join you in as well. Anyone that would like to join us on one of these broadcasts and to voice an issue and put your face to the conversation, you are more than welcome to do so. Just contact us. Send Lorraine an email at lorraine@aopa.com.au. And when we're running a broadcast, we'll organise to send you a link. We can bring you into the conversation.
Yep.
You can give your perspective. And, we're big and mean enough. We can take it when people don't agree with us. And, we're more than happy to give you a platform where you can put your views out there as well. Let us know, take part in the conversation. After all, this is your industry, and more importantly, this is your association. To everybody out there that are members of AOPA Australia, this is your industry. It's about you. It's about improving your industry and making aviation more accessible, more sustainable, more affordable.
And I think the other thing too is, Ben, just in closing, is we're just people. We are people in the industry. I mean, it's not like we're sitting on the outside, thinking about how maybe it should be. We are right in the middle of this industry. So, it's we understand your issues, but are we always going to get it right? No. Are we perfect? No, we're not. Not even Ben Morgan is perfect. Lorraine Macgillivray is sure as hell not perfect. So, but we will do the absolute best that we can to support people. And I'm going to mention the aircraft. I've done that with the Bristol. I would do it with anything else and anybody else. I don't like seeing people, organisations, anything being wronged. I like to see things set right. I like to see fairness and equity for everybody, and I think that's what's important, and accessibility. So, but just to warn everybody, we're not. And Peter, he's fine, thank you. Yes, he's still alive and kicking. Bob's still just doing fine, thanks, Peter. But yeah, just please tell us. Like Ben said, tell us. We've got broad shoulders. We can take it. Okay, so yeah, it would be great.
All right, Lorraine, thank you very much for your time this evening. You hop to it, and we're looking forward to having you join us again in the not too distant future. So thank you.
That'd be good. Thanks, Ben. Thanks, everybody.
Okay, there you had it. That was Lorraine Macgillivray, who is our new membership manager for the Aircraft Owners and Pilots Association of Australia. She's joined Team AOPA Australia to help us get our membership back in order post-COVID and to get things running smoothly. If you haven't had a chance to connect with Lorraine, I do encourage you to reach out, introduce yourself, come and say good day. You can reach her on 0419 307 768, or you can email her at lorraine@aopa.com.au. I say it at the end of every single video. Thank you so much for joining us. And if you do support what AOPA Australia is working towards and the advocacy that we are driving to protect you and your interests as an aircraft owner, as a pilot and a participant in this industry, I warmly invite you to join the association and to become part of what is an enormous force for goodwill in this industry. So jump online to aopa.com.au/membership, become a member. It's $159 as an individual to come and take part, and you can stand with us as we push forward on issues like the ASIC card, independent flight instructors, maintenance regulation reform, Part 67 self-declaration medical certification reform, protecting our airports, and so much more that needs to be dealt with on a daily basis. It's comforting to know that an organisation like AOPA is there for you, working for you as hard as we can. So thank you so much, guys. Ben Morgan from AOPA, and I do look forward to speaking to you all very soon.